Hi everyone, this is Amy and James here, and this is going to be a demonstration video to help you understand what the process of administering a standardized diagnostic assessment to a student would look like. So I'll try to walk you through some of the steps, and so this video will be accompanied by just some activities where you can kind of check your understanding as we go. And so to start off, this is James's first standardized diagnostic assessment that he has ever taken. So if that's the case with your student, you would want to just give a little explanation of what you're doing and establish rapport. And you could just explain that we'll be doing some questions and some activities that will just take probably about 10 minutes. All right?
Why?
Okay. Because it's not super long and it's not super short either. So, so I am going to be administering the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test. This is
PPVT.
This is the training manual. And as you can see, if you haven't seen already, the technical manual, technical manuals are pretty thick and include a lot of information. And before doing this video, I spent quite a bit of time reading through the chapters about administering the test and computing the scores. I made myself a cheat sheet. And that helps me understand where to start, how to establish a basal, how to establish a ceiling, and then things I can and can't say in terms of coaching him or prompting him, and you know, whether or not I can repeat the stimulus, and then just how to score it. So a basal is basically the lowest item set administered that contains 1 or 0 errors. That's how the basal's figured for this particular test. It's different for every test, but items are grouped in sets, and typically with these kinds of tests, you need to administer the item in the whole set. You don't ever stop in the middle of the set or page, or however the sets are organized. How you figure that out is there's some recommended starting places, so they go by age. So he and I will start at age level 4, that's how old he is. And if he gets 1 or 0 errors in that set, then that's our basal. If he happens to get more than 1 error, then we'll have to go back a whole set and start with the first item in that set and administer all 12 items in that set. So these go by 12. And the purpose for establishing a basal is because you want to make sure that you're not lengthening the amount of items that an examinee has to take, because you don't want to give too many easy items, and then by the time they get to the harder ones, but ones that at their level, you don't want them to fatigue. So so you want to skip the easier ones essentially, and what the basal does is it helps ensure that it's safe to assume that all the easier items he would have gotten correct had he been administered them. But we're not going to, because we don't want him to fatigue. So the flip side of a basal is establishing a ceiling set. So a ceiling is kind of the opposite. It's where you end. Just a second.
See you.
I know, just a second. So the ceiling is you continue testing and complete all the sets until you get there. And it's the highest set of items administered containing 8 or more errors. for this particular test. So remember, there's 12 in a set, and we'll stop when he gets to a set where that contains 8 or more errors. But I still have to remember to give all of the items in that set. I don't stop when he gets to 8 errors in that set. So, bottom line, administer by sets, and you do, first item in the set all the way to the last item in the set, and you don't ever stop in between. And then the basal and the ceiling, you need to make sure what those are so that you can get the items in that critical range, because you don't want your tester to fatigue out, because then that's an issue of validity for the test. Okay. All right. So this is the easel that you would use, and I'll try to position my computer so that you can see it. You will also get a scoring protocol, and what I've done already is I've filled out his name and birth date and date of testing. You'll need this information when you calculate the scores and when you figure out the score based upon the norm sample, age level and grade level. So with this one, you do a training item, and again, in the technical manual, it tells you which training item to start with. So we're going to start with training page B. All right, so I'll set this thing up. And on one side is the script, the prompts, and then on the other side are the pictures. And so what we're going to do is, so the prompt for this test actually happens to be quite simple. So I'm going to try and set it up so that you can see James's responses. All right, I think we can see it. Okay, James.
I'm pointing at it.
Okay, this is page A. Somehow we got to page A, but we need page B.
Page A. That's what I was thinking. I thought we were on page B, but we weren't.
Yep. Okay, James. Put your finger on the picture that shows laughing. Okay, good. Put your finger on the picture that shows sleeping. Good. Put your finger on the picture that shows hugging. Put your finger on the picture that shows walking. Okay. All right. So the examinee has to score at least 2 correct items on this test for the training items before you move on to the testing items. So he did. So we'll move on to where it shows us where to start. So we're going to start just at his age level. And this can be at your discretion, because for students or individuals whose chronological age may be higher than their developmental age, then you may start lower than what it suggests for chronological age. And the administration manual explains all that. Those are the kinds of things you want to look for when you administer a test like this. Not all tests use the same basal and ceiling. Not all tests have the same prompting suggestions or suggestions of where to start. So it's really important for you to read the information for the test that you give. I'm just explaining what this test says to do. Okay. All right, let me make sure we're on the... you see there?
Or can you make it bigger?
Yep, we can make it bigger.
Okay. Whoa. Hey, look at now lights.
All right, just focus on this, please. Okay, James. Put your finger on pencil.
I know what to point on. Just
put your finger on.
No, you don't need to point at it. Just tell me.
Okay, we're gonna flip the page. Put your finger on cookie.
No, don't say that. Cause say.
I need you to answer my questions. Put your finger on cookie.
But I don't.
Thank you.
I want to guess.
They'll get harder, don't worry. Put your finger on drum. Put your finger on turtle. Put your finger on red. Put your finger on jumping. Put your finger on carrot.
How will I get harder?
Well, the more we do. Put your finger on reading.
What are you writing?
I'm keeping track of what you say. Put your finger on toe. Put your finger on belt. Put your finger on fly.
Look at all those guys. What's that? Scorpion?
We're just going to keep
But that goes
going.
in the front.
Put your finger on painting. Okay, so that's the end of that set. So he did establish a basal in that set, so we'll just keep going. We don't have to go back a set. Put your finger on dancing. Put your finger on whistle.
Whistle? Aha! There's a horn, there's a clapper, there's a bell.
Put your finger on kicking. James, put your finger on one thing so I know what you're... Thank you.
Why?
So I know what it is that you think the answer is. Put your finger on picking.
Look at, they're shaving an apple.
Put your finger on target.
Target. And a bow and arrow just missed it. Bow and arrow just missed the target.
Put your finger on dripping. Put your finger on night.
Night? 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 Is that night?
We can talk about it. Put your finger on delivering.
Delivering.
Put your finger on cactus.
Ow, ow, ow.
Put your finger on dentist. Put your finger on floating.
He's floating. He's floating. That's funny.
Put your finger on claw.
Claw.
Put your finger on uniform.
I don't know what uniform means.
Then just take your best guess.
Is that uniform?
I can't tell you the answers. Put your finger on gigantic.
Gigantic. Gigantic. It's even bigger than that guy, that guy, that guy.
Put your finger on furry.
Fur. Is that kitty? Kitty.
Okay. Put your finger on violin.
Violin.
Put your finger on group.
Group. Group. He's climbing a mountain. And they're playing in the sandbox.
Put your finger on globe.
Globe. Ooh, look at that kind of thing.
Put your finger on vehicle.
Vehicle. And light tower. And lawnmower.
Put your finger on chef.
Chef. He's a chef.
Put your finger on squash.
Squash.
Put your finger on axe.
Axe.
Put your finger on flamingo.
Flamingo. Whoa, it has really big legs.
Put your finger on chimney.
Chimney. Chimney. Chimney.
Put your finger on sorting.
Sort.
Put your finger on waist.
Waist.
Put your finger on vegetable. Doing good, buddy. Put your finger on interviewing.
Interview. Down. Is that interviewing?
Put your finger on pastry.
Pastry. Pastry.
Put your finger on assisting.
Assisting.
Put your finger on fragile.
Fragile.
Put your finger on solo.
Solo.
Put your finger on, put your finger on snarling.
Starling.
Put your finger on puzzled.
Puzzled.
Okay. Put your finger on beverage.
Beverage.
Put your finger on inflated.
Inflated.
Put your finger on tusk.
Tusk.
Put your finger on trumpet.
Trumpet.
Put your finger on rodent.
Rodent. Mama, I'm ready to be.
I know. You're doing so well, buddy.
I don't want it.
Thank you for helping me. Put your finger on inhaling. Put your finger on links. Put your finger on polluting.
But what about polluting? Polluting. Polluting.
Put your finger on archaeologist.
Archaeologist.
Put your finger on coast.
Ghost. Ghost. No, ghost, ghost, ghost. That's a ghost.
Okay, you've pointed to all of them. Point to one.
Point to one. Now, ho, ho.
Put your finger on injecting.
Injecting. Bah.
Put your finger on fern.
Fern. Ow.
Put your finger on mammal.
Mammal. Mammal.
Put your finger on demolishing.
Demolition.
Okay, I think you turned 2 pages accidentally.
Oh.
Okay, from these, put your finger on demolishing.
Demolish.
Put your finger on isolation.
Isolation.
Put your finger on clamp.
Clamp. Clamp. Like the clamp.
Put your finger on dilapidated.
Dilapidated.
Okay, buddy.